My aloof roommate has an incessant penchant for biting me. Not on my collarbone, then on my thigh. I lay on my bed, weeping, and implored, "Why do you always bite me? Do you truly despise me so much?" It was not until I stumbled upon a post by my indifferent roommate that I began to understand. He wrote, "My roommate is so adorable I wish I could sneak onto his bed while he sleeps and then, 1. Ow, that hurts." That I was sprawled on my bed, my face buried in my arms, crying in frustration. A damp bite mark marred the inner thigh, throbbing incessantly. With a quavering voice, I confronted him. "Why do you persist in biting me? Where have I gone wrong? Do you truly loathe me?" The perpetrator swallowed hard, gazing at the mark he had left, and gently ruffled my hair, saying, "I apologize for inadvertently hurting you. Let me see your wound." He had already apologized numerous times, yet this did not deter him from biting me again in the future. Each time, he found various excuses to inflict this peculiar affection upon me. The first instance occurred during a sweltering summer when, alone in the dormitory after my shower, I donned only an oversized shirt while doing laundry. Upon returning and witnessing my state, he pinned me against the bathroom door and bit me lightly yet firmly. The second time was when I complimented a classmate on her beauty, leading him to pin me down on the bed and bite me once more. Then came the third, fourth times. Today, Lucy's reason for biting me was even more perplexing. It was merely because I mentioned my desire to move out. Today's bite was particularly painful, and I could not fathom which of my words had offended him. Every time he bites me, I am filled with indignation yet remain silent. According to my other roommates, Lucy is a wealthy heir. The library at our school was donated by his family. Such a person is one to be avoided at all costs. I fail to comprehend why Lucy, coming from a prosperous family, chooses to cohabitate with me. Unlike him, I barely manage to scrape together a meager allowance of 1,000 yuan a month and yearn to move away. I could take up tutoring or odd jobs. If I distanced myself from Lucy, he would have no opportunity to bite me. He must detest me greatly to resort to such behavior. Thus, after finally saving enough for rent, I excitedly rushed to inform him of my impending departure. Yet, he appeared utterly displeased, inflicting yet another bite upon me. Why, if he so despises me, does he seem unhappy at the thought of my leaving? Nevertheless, I must admit that he is generally kind to me. During finals, he would take me to a private study room, just the two of us, to tutor me in my weaker subjects. At night, when nightmares plagued my sleep, he would willingly squeeze into bed beside me for comfort. His demeanor is often cold, and he speaks little. I find it challenging to decipher his thoughts. Moreover, he is an exceptionally talented individual, handsome, the epitome of a campus heartthrob, and infuriatingly brilliant, consistently achieving top grades and participating in various prestigious competitions, basking in the adoration of his peers. As my other roommates would say, being friends with him is a badge of honor that one could boast about for a year. Recalling his kindness toward me, I often choose to endure his peculiar behavior, but this time, his bite was so agonizing that I could not help but burst into tears. Lucy lifted my ankle, inspecting the bite mark on my thigh, and gently blew on it. "It will stop hurting soon." His large palm enveloped my ankle, and I found myself unable to escape his grasp. With tears brimming in my eyes, I inquired, "Do you bite others as well?" Lucy chuckled softly. "I only do this to you." I felt an ache in my heart. "Do you truly despise me? Why do you single me out for such torment?" At my words, Lucy could not help but laugh lightly. His laughter was melodious as he leaned closer. "Silly, of course, I do not despise you." I remained skeptical, sensing deceit in his words. Yet, I nodded. "Very well, I shall forgive you this time, but it must not happen again." Noticing my tears had subsided, Lucy wiped the corners of my eyes and gently leaned in to ask, "By the way, where exactly is this rental you mentioned?" 2. That evening I received a message from my landlord. This was a house I had inquired about through a senior, conveniently situated near the school, reasonably priced, and with a comfortable living environment. I was preparing to tidy up and move in next week. However, the landlord unexpectedly informed me, "This house has been rented by someone else at a higher price. I will refund your rent and additionally compensate you with 20,000 as a penalty." I was taken aback. Everything had seemed fine before. Why had this house suddenly been rented by someone else? The monthly rent for the room was 800, and since I had only rented it for 3 months, I had paid just 2,400, along with a portion of the deposit. Now, all of it was being promptly refunded, along with a penalty of 20,000. Was this landlord truly so benevolent? As a financially strapped student, this was undoubtedly a windfall. Yet, I had already made arrangements with Lucy. Now, with this sudden turn of events, I could no longer move out, and he would surely be furious. I could only continue browsing rental listings online, hoping to find a reliable place nearby. Just then, I stumbled upon a post. My roommate cried after I bit him. But what should I do? The more he cries, the more excited I get. How can I comfort him? The comments were increasingly enthusiastic. Isn't that simple? Make another part of him cry too. And so this is what you city folks call a roommate. Can't stop laughing JPG. Another chimed in. Do I really need to teach you? Stuff his mouth, French kiss him, and he won't even be able to cry. The author liked this. The description of the roommate felt eerily familiar, and my heartbeat quickened in my ears. I clicked into the author's profile and saw the latest update from 5 o'clock. My little roommate has been quite unruly lately, always wanting to move out. How should I punish him? The top comment read, Isn't that simple? If he dares to run away, make sure he has no strength left to do so. Upon reading this post, I suddenly felt my phone burning in my hand, nearly dropping it in shock. Just then, Lucy I called out to me, What's wrong, Jingqian? You don't look well. I stammered. And nothing. I reminded myself to stay calm. I had yet to confirm whether the poster was indeed him, but the IP address, his biting habit, and my recent struggle to find a place to rent all aligned perfectly. What exactly did Lucy I intend to do with me? My mind conjured various terrifying scenarios, and a cold sweat broke out on my back. Lucy's gaze remained gentle as he nodded. If you feel unwell, remember to tell me. I feigned a nod in response. After he left, I continued to anxiously scroll through those posts. In the comments, someone asked, What if the little roommate actually finds a place to rent? The author replied with a smiling emoji, I won't let him rent a place. Just that afternoon, I had told Lucy I found a suitable house to move out of the dormitory, only for the landlord to inform me in the evening to cancel the lease. This could not be mere coincidence. Yet, I couldn't fathom why Lucy I would do such a thing. Did he dislike me so much that he didn't want to let me go, and intended to keep me by his side to torment me? But he had always treated me well. I simply couldn't understand what he truly wanted from me. Nevertheless, my instincts told me that I could not remain with him any longer. If possible, I still needed to find a way to move out. However, next time, I couldn't be so naive as to inform him of my plans to leave. Quietly, I devised a plan. Once the storm had passed, I would discreetly contact my senior to help me find another suitable rental, aiming to move during the winter break. By the time school resumed, I would have successfully vacated the dormitory. At that point, Lucy I would have no hold over me. I clenched my fists, convinced that this plan was foolproof. 3. Following that, I interacted normally with Lucy I during the day, like any ordinary roommate. Yet, at night, I anxiously awaited updates on Lucy's posts. To ensure I would promptly notice his updates, I even secretly created a secondary account to follow him, solely focused on him. Thus, a week passed in this calm manner. One night at 11 o'clock as I lay in bed, I suddenly noticed that my only followed account had posted. My roommate is so adorable. The lights are about to go out, and I just want to sneak onto his bed while he's asleep. While I was sipping water in bed, my hand trembled upon reading this post, causing my cup to slip from my grasp and spill cold water all over the bed. My heart sank. Oh no! Although I quickly retrieved the cup to clean up, it was too late. The sheets and blankets were already soaked. With November approaching, the weather had turned chilly, and I had only this one set of bedding. My entire bed was drenched, leaving me uncertain of how to sleep. The other roommates came to check on me. What are you going to do now? Does anyone have an extra blanket? Everyone shook their heads. I was on the verge of tears. The dormitory supervisor had already locked the doors, and there was no time to book a hotel now. Just when I was at a loss, Lucy I suddenly suggested, In that case, why don't you sleep in my bed tonight and squeeze in together? I was stunned. The other roommates agreed with Lucy I. Yes, Jingqian, it seems we have no choice. How had things escalated to this point? I still wanted to resist, turning to the other two roommates. Can't I just squeeze in with you both? Roommate Lu, he scratched his head. You can, but we both have terrible sleeping habits. If you sleep with us, you'll suffer. The other roommate, Chen Zhe, chuckled shyly. I don't sleep well either. I snore and grind my teeth. But Lucy I sleeps very well. His bed is quite comfortable. You should just make do with him tonight. But how could I dare to sleep alone in the same bed as Lucy I, whose attitude towards me was so ambiguous? I persisted, It's fine. I sleep deeply, and I won't even hear you snoring. Lucy I looked at me with a hint of darkness in his gaze. Xiao Qian, are you avoiding me? His tone betrayed no emotion, yet it seemed to carry an icy chill. I couldn't help but shiver, slowly turning my head. No, Lucy I, Let me explain. I didn't mean it that way. I floundered, trying to clarify. I just worry about being a bother to you. I heard you're not particularly fond of strangers getting close to you, and I don't want to make you uncomfortable. Lucy smiled. What are you afraid of? You're not a stranger. I searched for another excuse, but my mind was blank, and I couldn't come up with a reasonable explanation. Moreover, whether it was my imagination or not, Lucy's gaze towards me seemed increasingly dangerous. If I continued to refuse, would the consequences be dire? Thus, as the lights went out, I ultimately found myself lying in the same bed as Lucy. The posts I had monitored to guard against him had backfired, leading me straight into the lion's den. I lay there stiffly, as if a corpse, tears unshed. Sharing the same blanket with Lucy was an overwhelming experience. The bed was small, and the confined space felt particularly cramped, allowing me to distinctly feel his body heat. He smelled of refreshing body wash mingled with cedar, pleasant scent. Perhaps it was an illusion, but Lucy's bed was indeed far more comfortable than mine. The life of a wealthy heir was evidently different. Yet, the moment I recalled the content of Lucy's posts, I was filled with trepidation, unable to sleep. Fearing that he might do something to me, I lay with my back turned, my breath shallow. Lucy's sleeping posture was remarkably good. Since I had laid on his bed, he had barely moved. I exhaled a sigh of relief. Perhaps I was overthinking. Lucy was not a bad person after all. I know not how long it has been. Long enough for my other roommates to have fallen into slumber, their snores echoing through the room. A symphony of deep breaths from Lucy and Chen Zhe. Lucy remained quietly still, and I could not ascertain whether he had drifted into sleep. Gradually, I lowered my guard, the weight of drowsiness enveloping me, my consciousness blurring. At that moment, I felt a warm mouth gently nibbling on my earlobe from behind. The heat of the mouth enveloped the skin on my earlobe, the tip of the tongue occasionally teasing the base of my ear, and I was instantly electrified, all traces of fatigue vanishing. Fearing that Lucy might discover my awakening, I clutched the bed sheet tightly, striving to control my breath. Lucy, seemingly aware of my lack of response, assumed I was soundly asleep and relaxed, his actions becoming increasingly audacious. He leaned in, wrapping his arms around me from behind and planting soft kisses on the nape of my neck. Silly Qian, you know nothing. Turning your back to me is far more perilous. I was bewildered. What did he mean by turning away being more dangerous? From my understanding, facing him was the true peril. In the next instant, I experienced firsthand why turning away could indeed be more treacherous. A jolt coursed through me as I endeavored to maintain my composure, terrified he might realize I was awake. What was I to do? Why was Lucy behaving this way? Did he intend to betray me under the cover of night, inflicting wounds upon my heart? Yet he did not seem to harbor such malicious intent. Rather, it felt as if I dared not pursue that thought further, fervently praying for Lucy to relent. Since childhood, I have been enamored with melodramatic television dramas, where the classic trope involves a wealthy heir bullying a poor student. Such narratives left a profound psychological scar on my young mind, instilling the belief that the affluent were beyond my reach. Yet, I had made every effort to avoid provoking him, only for Lucy to pursue me relentlessly. I felt utterly aggrieved, biting my lip to stave off tears. However, at that critical moment I managed to suppress my voice. If I uttered a sound, Lucy would know I was awake, and then how could I possibly coexist with him amicably? Though I could not fathom his motives for such behavior, I knew Lucy was inherently good, making it impossible for me to harbor animosity towards him. But if I held no disdain for him, did he perhaps despise me? Otherwise, why would he engage in such conduct in the dead of night? Just then, Lucy gently kissed my cheek, his voice barely above a whisper. Dear Qian, I truly like you. I was taken aback. A singular thought consumed my mind. Could it be that Lucy was not the straight man I had presumed? In the next moment, his fingers grew bolder, and before I could react, my body trembled involuntarily. The noise was unmistakable, and my mind went blank. I was doomed. How could I be so ineffectual, having vowed to feign sleep, yet ultimately failing to hold my ground? Suddenly, inspiration struck me, and I devised a plan to muddle through. Having frequently watched horror films, I recalled how protagonists often awoke from nightmares. Thus, I curled up slightly, pretending to be ensnared in a nightmare, murmuring softly, No, help. Cold sweat beaded on my forehead as I anxiously awaited Lucy's response. Then, warm hands rested gently upon my back. Lucy was behind me, softly patting my back. His voice was tender and soothing. "Qian, dear, do not fear. I am here." Although his presence filled me with dread, inexplicably, I found a peculiar sense of safety in that moment. I felt that no matter how excessively Lu Xi acted, he would never harm me. Gradually, I relaxed and, unbeknownst to me, drifted into slumber after what seemed like an eternity. Upon waking in the morning, I sat up in a daze, only to realize I was in Lu Xi's bed. My roommates had risen earlier and, upon seeing me awake, inquired, "Jing Qian, you're awake. Did you sleep well last night?" I glanced sideways to find Lu Xi diverting his gaze from a book, lazily observing me. Instantly, I donned the guise of a skilled actor, crafting excuses for my past self. I slept reasonably well, just a bit muddled, as if I had a nightmare. Lu Xi's eyes flickered with interest. What kind of nightmare, specifically? I tightened my grip on the blanket. It was a nightmare where a tentacled monster ensnared me, rendering me immobile and unable to escape. "I see," Lu Xi smiled. "Perhaps I rolled over and inadvertently pressed against you last night." "Lu," he chimed in with a laugh. "Jing Qian, have you been watching horror films again? I've told you time and again, with your timid nature, you shouldn't indulge in such movies. And now look, nightmares." I nodded absently, murmuring, "Understood. I won't watch them anymore." In the afternoon, while Lu Xi attended to matters at the student union, I remained in the dormitory, working on a draft for our club. Unable to resist, I logged into a secondary account to peruse Lu Xi's posts. He had indeed updated his thread, sharing, "Last night, we slept together. My little roommate's ears are sweet and very sensitive to bites." The comments section erupted, filled with exclamations of delight. Upon reading this post, I felt the ears he had nibbled the previous night suddenly flush with warmth, the surrounding temperature soaring. Just then, I noticed a highly upvoted comment. "I can't take it anymore. When will the poster confess?" The author replied, "Just wait a bit. He is timid, and I fear a sudden confession might scare him." I was stunned. Confess? Why a confession? With trepidation, I commented with my secondary account, "Wait, I've been trying to comprehend this. Are you saying, poster, that you actually like your roommate?" Immediately after posting, I regretted it, hesitating to look back. I considered myself reserved, possessing an edge of personality that Lu Xi could never possibly find appealing. Surely, my previous comment would go unnoticed. With this mindset, I cautiously opened the comments section. To my horror, I was met with a slew of responses directed at me. "Wait, why is there a naive child here? You all should tone it down. Don't scare this poor kid. Good little one, be obedient. This is an adult-s world, not a place for you." Yet, Lu Xi had replied to me with a simple statement. "Yes, I really like you." In that moment, it felt as though Lu Xi stood before me, speaking with the utmost gentleness. "Yes, I really like you." I sank to the ground, stunned. I had thought the words he spoke to me last night were merely a figment of my imagination. How could they be real? Lu Xi truly was not a straight man. Suddenly, I found myself at a loss. However, this at least confirmed that Lu Xi's fondness for biting my ears was not born from disdain or a desire to bully me. Alone in the dormitory, I tugged at my hair in a frenzy, contemplating how to navigate this perplexing situation. My first instinct was to flee. Thus, I reached out to the senior who had previously assisted me in finding accommodation, offering him a bit more money to help me secure a rental while ensuring that no one else would know. Though the senior was puzzled, he agreed. As the weather turned cooler, my blanket remained damp even into the night. Frantically, I touched the wet fabric, wishing to summon the now-setting sun to dry it anew. Lu Xi casually remarked, "You could squeeze in with me for another night." His tone was sincere, concealing any ulterior motives that one might suspect. Had I not discovered his posts, I might never have doubted him. However, at this moment, I truly felt a sense of trepidation. I hastily replied, "It's all right. The quilt will dry soon. I can just use the hairdryer and I'll be able to sleep." Lu Xi narrowed his eyes and asked, "Xiao Qian, are you deliberately avoiding me?" I quickly defended myself, "No. I'm merely concerned that sharing a bed with you might inconvenience you." Lu Xi responded, "You have not inconvenienced me at all." Silently, I retrieved the hairdryer, nearly on the verge of tears, and insisted, "It's really fine. I can manage on my own." Lu Xi regarded me thoughtfully, and finally ceased his inquiries. That night, I struggled to dry the quilt, yet despite lying on my own bed, sleep eluded me. As the final exams concluded, my roommates packed their belongings and returned home. I did not rush to leave, for I was in the process of relocating. Before Lu Xi departed, he gently tousled my hair and said, "Xiao Qian, see you at the start of the semester." I responded nervously, see you then. Watching his retreating figure, I felt a pang of guilt. However, I had not spoken untruthfully. Although I would no longer reside in the dormitory after the semester commenced, we were in the same major and would still attend classes together. During lectures, our paths would frequently cross. Seizing the opportunity while Lu Xi was away, I moved most of my personal belongings to my rented apartment. Once I completed this task, I finally felt at ease returning home. My parents were perpetually busy with work and seldom returned. The entirety of the winter break stretched long and dull. I occasionally stumbled upon Lu Xi's posts. With 10 days remaining in the break, I found myself yearning to see him. Observing his adorable appearance in a down jacket in my social media feed further intensified my feelings. Oh, how I wish this tedious winter break would swiftly come to an end. Otherwise, I might be compelled to seek him out myself. These thoughts only deepened my sense of unease. What would Lu Xi feel if he discovered I had already moved out by the time school resumed? Nonetheless, there was little I could do. If I did not share a dormitory with him, the likelihood of him seeing me diminished, and perhaps his interest in me would wane. At that point, we could interact as ordinary roommates. Although I had prepared myself mentally, the actual beginning of the semester filled me with anxiety, particularly when a roommate in our dormitory group chat tagged me, inquiring why I had yet to arrive. I trembled as I replied, "I found a reasonably priced rental and am temporarily living outside." Lu He and Chen Zhe were aware that I had been searching for accommodation last semester, so upon learning this news, they did not display any overt surprise. This somewhat assuaged my apprehension. However, I waited an entire day without Lu Xi saying anything in the dormitory group chat. His lack of reaction to my moving out should have been a good sign. Yet, inexplicably, I sensed an undercurrent of danger in his demeanor. The following day in class, Lu Xi greeted me with his usual smile. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Yet, it was precisely this normality that felt unsettling. Was it possible that after an entire winter break, Lu Xi had lost interest in me? If that were true, there would be nothing to worry about. Yet, a nagging feeling told me that matters were not so straightforward. Sure enough, that evening, Lu Xi updated his post. "My little roommate has fled. What should I do with him?" Though it contained but a single line, it sent a chill down my spine. He had realized my departure was an attempt to avoid him. The comments section was as raucous as ever. What to do? Capture him and train him well. Lock up the runaway little roommate so he can't escape. Oh, finally, my favorite forced romance plot. While I understood they were merely jesting, anxiety gripped me. I feared Lu Xi might take their suggestions to heart. Nevertheless, when I encountered him in daily life, he continued to treat me with the same kindness as before, unchanged. He would buy me candy when my blood sugar dropped, assist me with disorganized PowerPoint slides, and I often found myself wishing we could remain in this uncomplicated dynamic forever. On the 7th day of the semester, I fell ill with a fever and, having requested a leave of absence from my teacher, did not attend class. In a haze, I heard someone knocking at the door. I cautiously rose from my bed and opened the door to reveal a tall figure. It was none other than Lu Xi. I was momentarily stunned. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "I heard you were sick, so I came to check on you," he replied with a gentle smile. "Don't you ever ask who it is before opening the door for strangers?" I stammered. How did you find me?" He waved his phone. I asked the counselor. "Did you forget that all students renting off campus must report their addresses to the counselor?" So that was another avenue to track me down. Yet now that he was here, there was no way to send him away. I could only awkwardly say, "Then please come in." This place was secluded, and with no neighbors around, I was ill, feverish, and unable to call for help. In other words, whatever he intended to do, no one would know. I felt a surge of fear. As he stepped inside, he suddenly raised his hand towards me. Terrified, I shut my eyes, mentally conjuring a series of unspeakable scenarios. Yet the next moment, he merely placed his hand on my forehead to gauge my temperature. "You've got a fever. Stay still, be good, and lie back down properly," he instructed. I returned to bed as he busied himself attending to my needs, applying a cooling patch and ordering takeout. Then he fed me porridge. I lowered my eyelashes, my vision hazy, as I accepted the spoonfuls he offered. The taste was delightful. When a drop of porridge spilled, he gently wiped it away with his finger. After finishing my meal, I lay back on the bed. Lu Xi leaned down, his fingers lightly brushing my lips, causing my body to tense up. His hand then moved down to tuck me in more snugly, and without further action, he offered a few words of caution before leaving. In that moment, an unexpected emptiness enveloped my heart. From that day forth, Lu Ci ceased to update any posts. The comments section was filled with fans urging him to share more, inquiring about the status of his romantic endeavors, yet he remained silent. I found myself inexplicably wanting to join those fans in urging for updates. Clearly, something was amiss. How could I feel a sense of loss? Living alone here, I felt an overwhelming loneliness. At that moment, a thought struck me. I actually yearned to return. However, just then, my landlord sent me an inconvenient message. I apologize, but the rental you are staying in has been leased to someone else at a higher price. They made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Please pack your things and move out in a few days. I will compensate you with 25,000 yuan for breaking the lease, and if you need help moving, I can assist you. I was left bewildered. Now, even if I wanted to stay, I had no choice but to move. 3 days later, I found myself back in my original dormitory, utterly confused. Lu He and Chenze teased me. Jing Qian, I truly don't know whether to call you lucky or unfortunate. If you're lucky, it seems every rental you choose is sought after by the wealthy. If you're unfortunate, you keep receiving hefty compensation from your landlords. I instinctively glanced at Lu Ci. Unlike my other roommates, he seemed entirely unfazed by my return. Indeed, it appeared he had orchestrated this situation. Upon my arrival, he simply smiled lightly and said, "It's good to have you back." My throat tightened. I noticed the comment section was filled with remarks about how my roommates would need to train him properly now that I had returned. I felt a flutter of anxiety. However, on the other hand, I am acutely aware that Lu Ci would never engage in any excessive actions towards me. He would even compensate me with a substantial penalty if he were to evict me from the rented room. Moreover, he has always treated me with utmost tenderness. It is precisely for this reason that I am reluctant to let our relationship deteriorate. One evening, after taking a shower, I realized I had only brought along the upper half of my nightwear. Fortunately, my other roommates had gone out to play games, leaving just me in the dormitory. I slipped into the barely there top that just covered my thighs and, while drying my hair, went in search of my clothes. Just as I was about to put on my pajama bottoms, the dormitory door clicked open. I raised my gaze to find Lu Ci's pupils narrowing in surprise. Oh no, I recalled that the first time Lu Ci had bitten me was under a similar circumstance. Back then, I had also carelessly forgotten to grab my pants, emerging from the bathroom in a white shirt that barely reached my thighs, dripping wet. At that moment, I was entirely oblivious to the gravity of the situation, casually greeting Lu Ci and asking him to fetch my clothes from the chair. Subsequently, I found myself pinned against the bathroom door, a mark of his bite left on my delicate collarbone, now warmed by the steam of the bathroom. I crouched at the door, clutching my neckline and weeping in sheer indignation. Was it really necessary to bite me just because I asked for your help with my clothes? Whoa. Lu Ci had comforted me for a long time, saying, "I'm sorry, you were just too adorable, and I couldn't help myself." I, of course, refused to believe his words, stubbornly concluding that this young master was upset enough to bite me simply because I had asked for assistance. Reflecting on it now, had he perhaps harbored feelings for me even then? I stood rigidly at the bathroom door, uncertain of what expression to wear or how to greet him. Before I could collect my thoughts, Lu Ci had already reacted, retrieving my pajama bottoms from the chair and handing them to me with a low, husky voice, as if suppressing something. "Here, put your clothes on." I hurriedly accepted the garments and dashed back to my bed, drawing the curtain tightly around me as I dressed, cocooning myself securely. Just as I emerged, Lu Ci entered the bathroom, remaining inside for a considerable duration. It wasn't until Lu came in with a basin that he unexpectedly queried, "Why is the water in the bathroom so cold? Did someone take a cold shower?" Lu Ci seemed to be intentionally keeping his distance from me. The last time I had emerged from the shower without properly dressing, he had behaved like a normal roommate, not crossing any boundaries. Today, while I was reviewing questions, my pen accidentally rolled to the floor. As I bent down to retrieve it, my fingertips brushed against Lu Ci's hand, which had come down to assist me. The moment our skin met, he swiftly withdrew his hand. Such a normal and safe distance in social interaction should have been what I yearned for. Yet, for reasons unknown, a sense of unprecedented loss surged within me. I logged into a secondary account to peruse Lu Ci's previous posts, only to discover that he had not updated in quite some time. I posted a query. What should I do if I have been thinking about someone constantly, only to find that they are no longer as close to me as before? A reply in the comments suggested, "Have you possibly developed feelings for that person?" I had never considered such a possibility. Cautiously, I responded, "Feelings? I'm not certain." The commenters provided various suggestions. One in particular, at first glance seemingly ludicrous, upon closer inspection felt oddly plausible. "Hear us a trick. Sneak a kiss while he is asleep. If you experience a strong flutter at that moment, then it's love." I pondered this statement for quite some time, clutching my phone. Over the next few days, I became a veritable hawk, watching Lucy for an opportunity to steal a kiss while he slumbered. However, I soon realized that Lucy was often wide awake. He was exceptionally capable, adept at managing his time, accomplishing numerous tasks in a single day. He maintained a perfect academic record, smoothly ascending to the position of student council president, while still finding ample leisure to pursue personal interests, including gaming with me during his downtime. He was perpetually surrounded by a plethora of remarkable individuals. This only served to amplify my self-doubt. How could someone of his caliber possibly have feelings for me? Nevertheless, I resolved to clarify my own emotions. That evening, while he was asleep, I stealthily climbed onto his bed. The night was hazy, and I could hear his rhythmic breathing, allowing me to finally relax. Leaning down, I gently pressed my lips against the corner of his mouth. The moment my skin touched his, every nerve in my body trembled. At that instant, I began to realize that my feelings for Lucy were indeed something extraordinary. Having confirmed this, I endeavored to cautiously and slowly return to my own bed. Just then, Lucy unexpectedly grasped my arm, pulling me into his embrace. I attempted to evade him, but one hand held my waist while the other firmly pressed against the back of my head. "You kissed me and now you wish to flee?" In that moment, my heart raced tumultuously. Oh no, Lucy had discovered me. Panic surged through me, an avalanche of thoughts flooding my mind. What if those posts weren't written by him? What if the person he liked was not me at all? What if everything had merely been my self-delusion? "Lucy, please let me explain." But before I could finish, Lucy's lips silenced mine. He embraced me, and I surrendered to the kiss. His skills were remarkable. I felt as though I was melting into his form, nearly forgetting to breathe. His voice, low and husky, murmured, "Jing Qian, now that you've kissed me, you must take responsibility. No more running away." My face burned with embarrassment. "All right, I promise I won't run away again." His breathing grew heavier, and after a long pause he smiled faintly, biting my shoulder gently. Not too hard, and let out a soft sigh. "Xiao Qian, why did it take you so long to realize your feelings for me? I've been waiting for quite some time. If it had taken any longer, I truly don't know what I might have done." Lucy's posts finally saw an update. However, this time the content was markedly different. In the photograph, our fingers were intertwined, hands clasped tightly, and the caption was a simple 4-character phrase: "We are together." The comments section exploded with enthusiasm, resembling a festive occasion, filled with an array of 99,999 responses, among which was my secondary account. I pondered whether to reveal to Lucy that I had long been aware of his posts. Ultimately, I decided against it. If he were to discover that I had known of his affection while still evading him, he would undoubtedly bite me again. The end. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and give a thumbs up to support. Until we meet again in the next story.